everybody. Welcome to the show. We're very excited to be here this week. In lieu of all of us not being together at Oshkosh, we've planned some very special stuff this week. And today we have Chris Henry, author of The Final Mission. But he's also the EAA Aviation Museum's program coordinator. So thanks for being with us again, Chris. We have you on the show a lot, but we always love talking to you. And
I love it. I love coming on, and I always love chatting with you guys and hanging out. And it feels weird that we're not in an underground house, which is how I believe we spent a couple AirVentures together. So
yes, yeah, the roundhouse and
the Hobbit / Star Wars Tatooine house that we all used to rent together when years and years ago.
It
had an actual stream running through it.
Yes,
yeah.
it did.
You know,
I try to describe that house to people, and they're like, "What?"
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's what happens when you design a house and you've been drinking. And it's just like, you know what? Let's put a stream through the living room, and that's
and they're like,
that's
"Yeah, that's great."
yeah, exactly.
We've stayed at some pretty interesting houses before you moved out there. And to be clear, we don't stay with Chris now at his house. We don't.
You're always welcome.
Invite us.
You guys are just
if he invited us, but
yeah, you're always welcome. Absolutely.
We've definitely, that was the Hobbit house had the haunted bedroom that we stayed in, and Adam's like, "It's not haunted." I'm like, "Totally haunted."
That's you're in for a good stay when someone leads in with like, "Well, it's not technically haunted."
Well, I think Matt Jolly brought it up where he's like, "Are you staying in the haunted bedroom?" And I'm like, "Oh, I think that's our room."
Yeah. That's where the lights would just randomly come on and off. And,
Yes.
Absolutely.
Like
it
some
was
weird
pretty. And there was no cell phone coverage, like because it was literally under the earth.
Yeah.
Like the house was, so you couldn't talk on your cell phone. You had to go outside, and it just.
When the windows were super thick, it looked like they could cage an animal in between them.
Yes.
Like a weird atrium in the middle that you couldn't get to.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you'd like work to get to parts of the house, like a puzzle, and it was really very strange. But there was a beautiful, I love the patio that was out back, and
it was on the lake.
Pond, our own private lake.
Oh, that was nice. Yeah. And the paddle boat. Kara and I went out on the paddle boat.
We did go out on the paddle boat, and it was pitch black, and we screamed the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, how do we get back?
There's wild.
I didn't even know you guys were on the paddle boat. I just heard screaming. I'm like, I'm sure they're fine. And Adam and Jim were just like, yeah, they're good. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
As you guys crack open another beer.
It was fun though, but definitely missing the fact that we're not there. So
it's so weird.
Wore
awesome
t-shirt.
Awesome. I'm wearing EAA attire as well. And
yeah, I've got my. This is one of the first ones that I bought. I think the very first year we went out there.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Like 10, 15 years ago.
Wow.
I don't remember how long it is. Jim's not here to help me with my dates. I can't remember. I'm like, oh, that was last year. He's like, no, that was 10 years ago. Like,
yeah, it was fast. And I think this will be our second year that I have, since I've known Adam. We met in 2009. So this will be our second year that we aren't there, because we took one year off for some reason. Like, I think maybe we went 1 year and then took the second year off. And that year we entered the 48-hour film festival, which we made our classic short film, Bitch Get Out of the Bathroom.
You didn't make any other wishes today, did you? Please tell me you didn't. I don't want anyone else to get hurt.
Hey, what makes you think I'm wishing bad wishes?
Well, you're a bitch.
Fair enough.
So if you guys haven't seen it,
it's really good. You gotta watch it.
It sounds like Samuel L. Jackson should be in that.
It's basically a Buffy episode. It's like 4 minutes long, but
it's pretty great.
That always happens the same time as Oshkosh, so that was the only year we've ever been able to do it. But it was fun. It's like,
I gotta tell you,
do we make you watch it? over and over. We were like, well, let's watch bitch get out of the bathroom again.
Yeah, get those views up. It's an award-winning movie.
Interesting. Now I kind of want to see it. Like, I got to watch this.
Yeah,
So.
We'll
you can
send you
look
the
it up
link.
when we're done.
Yeah. Well, a viewing. Yeah.
Spoiler, it is non-aviation related.
Oh, so Chris, what are you doing this week since we're not all at Oshkosh? I know, I'm like,
Yeah.
segue.
Yeah. Speaking of that, yeah.
Speaking of airplanes.
No, it's very strange. It's very weird not to already have a sunburn from moving airplanes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm not tired, and it's sad. It's very sad to drive by the grounds and there's nothing going on. And the best way I can describe it, even though we knew this was happening for a while, I mean, we made the call to not have the show, a while back. But it feels sort of like you were planning a dinner party and then it snowed a ton and nobody could come. And you're sort of sitting here with, your house ready to entertain and nobody is able to come and be there.
Yeah.
It was a hard decision for everybody to make. In some regards it wasn't. I mean, it was, look, everybody's safety comes first, everybody's health comes first, and hopefully next year we'll be all at it and hanging out again. But to me, it's just the weirdest thing to have this non-activity. I've not missed an AirVenture since 1996. It was my first time coming. My friend Claire brought me up, and we were hooked. I mean, I was hooked. He'd been before. So it's just so weird. And to be honest, I miss you guys. I miss my friends. Even though I see you guys more than once a year, there are friends that I only see at AirVenture.
Yeah.
And, it's sad not to interact with them. My one of my favorite stories is AirVenture, and in aviation, not just EA's AirVenture, but so many different, events, museums, organizations have just such dedicated people and supporters.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite story is the first AirVenture I ever worked. I'm ready for hot weather. I mean, I'm ready for like 100 degrees. I'm wearing shorts and a breathable like polo shirt type thing, and it was like 60 degrees and like blowing windy, freezing cold. Me and Nikki Watts are like huddled together to try to stay warm because it is freezing cold. And these two guys come by and they're just like, you guys aren't really dressed for this, are you? And we're like, no, we're wearing our summer uniform stuff that we thought we'd be, sweating in. So they went and bought us coffees. And these are just members who were attending the show. And then we struck up a conversation, and every year since, and every morning at AirVenture, they'd stop by with a cup of coffee for us. And,
I love that.
Cool.
yeah, I love, and that's the kind of stuff that I miss. Like, because,
Yeah.
they're not on Facebook or anything like that, so it's not like I'm going to get to talk to these guys.
Yeah.
It was probably 3 years before I found out their names, so you miss stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I miss seeing all my friends. Like I miss seeing you, although I think our favorite game to play when we were there is Where's Chris? Like, where's Walt?
Oh, Chris, where are you?
I remember one time I had you guys on the golf cart for a few minutes, and it was like, this is the most time we've ever spent together at AirVenture.
I think we went a half a block, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You want to ride? Yeah, sure. Where are you going? Right there.
Yeah. Every time you'd see me, I was always going just like right over there, or you were just going right over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, fun times.
Yeah, when you worked in the members tent, it was easy for us to find you, so we could at least come hang out with you for a little bit. But you were still working. So.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's I'm all over, and But that has led me to some amazing adventures that I never thought I'd have.
Mm-hmm.
The highlight for me probably, God, it's tough. One of my favorite things was doing the Apollo astronaut reunion.
Oh, huh.
Oh, yeah.
I
That
got
was
to
a
work
year.
with. What's that?
That was a good year.
Oh God, yeah, that was amazing.
It was great to watch it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and getting the chance to work with. I think we had a final number. I think we had 7 astronauts and Gene Kranz. I think we had 8 on stage. But prior to that, there were a few that couldn't make it for health reasons, but they still worked with us doing like interviews and things, and they were going to try to come. But so I had talked to like 12 or 13 of the surviving Apollo astronauts. And I would assume that that's somewhat rare to get to talk to that many of them. It was just really funny because they ran the gamut of personalities. Really amazing people, all of them, really super nice, no pun intended, down to earth. Some of them were totally like the astronaut. I want the cool watch, and I see a cat.
I cannot get on a Zoom call without one of them jumping up in my lap, like, what are you doing?
It's
Just
okay.
little
My dog
ears
is
coming
going
up.
to try to figure this out here soon, I'm sure. But then some of them were like totally like the Corvette, big watch, and then you had, others who weren't, they were really kind of humble about the whole thing. And, but just the opportunity to get to talk to people and, you're shaking their hand and it's like, wow, you were on the moon. Like that's
Right.
pretty wild,
Yeah.
A lot of fun getting them together. I worked with you guys actually 1 year with the B-25 for getting the B-25s together for the Doolittle Raiders.
That
Same
was
year.
so fantastic. Yeah, we were so grateful to be a part of that.
That was
You know,
amazing.
to have Dick Cole send us on our way. Oh,
Yeah. That was, I wish I would have known that was happening myself. I'm
did
standing
too.
there
We
and
did
just like,
too.
I'm like, oh, that's Dick Cole. Like, cool.
I think he just did it. I don't know that it was a thing. I think he just
No.
decided to do it.
Yeah.
Hey, don't take
Wait,
my
are
pen.
you guys talking about when he stood on the side of the runway and waved
It
to
saluted
everybody?
all the airplanes off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think he just decided to do that.
And I think that, so that project that I was assigned that year of getting the 25s here, it was easy for some because some of them were already coming, so it wasn't, when I called it was just more of a, we'll make sure we park with all the other B-25s. I mean, they were already coming. But there were a few that weren't coming, and we had to work through some hurdles to see if we could get them here, and luckily we did. But I think the B-25 community really should be proud of how much they actually showed up for the Doolittle events while we had these Doolittle Raiders here the last few years.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's not, I'm talking to you, this more than anybody. It's not cheap to operate one of these airplanes.
Not easy.
Right. It's not easy, and it takes people's time and blood and sweat, tears, and money. And every B-25 that I called, I'll never forget this, because there's usually there's an appearance fee for airplanes like this. Oshkosh is a bit of a different show. And literally, we had a donor who, their dad flew B-25s, and he wanted to help pony up money for some airplanes that couldn't get here.
Mhm.
And I'll never forget, when I would call these B-25s that needed help, they would literally pull up like their flight planning tools and just start plotting it out, doing the math and their fuel
Not even a
burn.
question.
And they'd just be like, this is how much we need to have. Like, there was no built-in, there was no, boy, we're going to get, this. They were just doing it literally just to cover their cost to get there. And I thought that was, really cool. The B-25 down at the Liberty Aviation Museum, it's awful that I can't remember the name of that aircraft. It's got, yes, it's got, exactly.
That's that's only an hour and a half from our house. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Really, really cool owner. And I'll never forget, he said, look, I only have one condition. And I was like, oh no, here it comes. Like, I want to,
Oh dear.
something crazy. And he was like, all I want to do, Dave Thatcher is someone that we've made a relationship with. Dave Thatcher was a top turret gunner, flight engineer on airplane number 7.
Mhm.
And he said, we just want to represent airplane number 7. Can we do that? That's my only contingent on being here. So when we did that big sort of staging where they mocked them up to look like they were on the carrier deck, Georgie's gal was parked as number 7 to represent the ruptured duck. And I just thought that was cool. That's what it meant to a lot of these people. to come. Just things like that. They wanted to represent their person that they maybe had a relationship with. But hats off to the B25 owners and operators, because that wouldn't happen without their generosity.
Yeah.
For us, when something like that happens, or like, with Dick Cole's funeral flyover, it's not even a question. That's what our mission is to honor these guys and to educate people about the sacrifices that they made. So it's like, you make it work, you make it happen, and you figure out a way, so it's, it was an honor to be a part of that. Was that the year that you made the little navigation?
The bomb sites? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah, we wanted to do something, because the Doolittle Raiders used a special bomb site. They called it the 20-cent bomb site, because they were afraid that their Nordens would fall into the hands of the enemy. And we wanted to make something cool, and somebody had made something else cool. I can't remember what it was. And we're like, well, we can't copy them, and what can we do? The only thing I did wrong was when I decided to try to make up the mock-up, the Air Force Museum gave me the plans to make the mock-up. And I took it to our engineer, Balkan, who works in the Weeks hangar. I forgot to tell him that it didn't need to be like the actual grade metal that like the bomb sites were, that you could go thinner. This was more of just a trophy. And Balkan is an old German,
needs to be structurally sound.
right, engineer, and he's just like, well, it's got to work, So he made it like out of the same grade aluminum that like the real ones actually were made out of. So each trophy weighed like 5 pounds, because it's mounted on this wood bracket, and they're like, okay. One of the 25s actually mounted theirs in their airplane.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they actually have theirs up in the nose, which I thought was cool. So
I'll take a picture of ours and post it, Kara.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about this. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was neat. Yeah, and each of the 25 crews that came in got one. And
oh, cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of great memories. I look forward to hopefully next year.
Yes. Yeah.
So Chris, you're all over the place there, obviously. What's your favorite thing about AirVenture?
Ooh, good question.
So, what I love doing? I do a lot of interviews for the media. I'm one of the people that get kind of dinged to go do those. And a lot of times they're really early, like still dark early. And when I'm done with those, it's sometimes maybe around 6 a.m., 5:30, something like that when we're finishing up. So literally at some points it's dark, and like it's just me, the reporter, and like the garbage trucks driving around, like getting the garbage out, But I love to just cruise around. It's still cool. The sun's just coming up, and I love to go out and just get some cool pictures. And that's really the time that I get to enjoy AirVenture. Yeah. Because as soon as like the fire gets lit for the day, it's like, look out, things are going on. But for those couple hours, that like hour and a half, or so, there's nobody there, and I just get to kind of just roll around looking at, here's a P-51 or something like that I've been wanting to check out. And that's one of my favorite points of the day. Yeah,
we were there. We never camp, so because I'm not a camper. We always have
a house with a pool.
Me neither. Yeah. This has to have a Hampton Inn. I'm just saying. So.
You need a sleep mask and some earplugs.
Yeah. Every year I toy with the idea where I'm like, oh, it seems so fun and cool, and then I'm like, no, in reality, I would hate it and it would be miserable. The
allergies alone would be bad.
I just didn't get any sleep. But the one thing that we always think would be cool is to be able to stay late and look at the planes and get up early and see them. And the one year we shot with, we were filming with the Texas Flying Legends, and we were out there doing some interviews with some World War II veterans really early in the morning so that it was quiet. And it was one of my favorite moments, is being there for the sunrise and having that cool morning just to be, and it's like there's only like a handful of people wandering around.
Yeah, everybody starts to wake up out of their tent.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
I did. So I camped one night. I did camp one time before I worked here.
Yeah. And
it was really cool getting to like wake up to, you'd hear P-51s cranking up and taking off to go do early morning photo shoots and stuff like that. It is really cool. My hat's off to people who camp. there's a really special camaraderie down there. It's really neat to go check out all the campers. I just can't. My hat's off to you. I've got to have like a bed and everything, you know.
On the reenactors that camp in the World War II stuff, like that's
Right.
a different level of camping.
Yeah.
We did
That's a whole nother world of camping for sure.
we did that at Rockford very early on, and like, oh no. Like, it was a great experience, and I would never, but I mean, and those guys do it the whole week. They're in the tents, and it's hotter than hot. And you know, the ladies, they, you know, get their hair all done and look just like they're right out of the 40s. And I'm like, how did you do that in the 50s? Like, how did you? I can't even do my hair normally.
No, not even
Are you guys able to
full
edit?
bathroom.
Can I take a break real quick?
Yeah.
Are we able to do that?
Yes.
Yeah, we can talk.
Hold on, and I'll explain
Yeah.
this in a second.
Okay.
Okay, hold on, I'll be right back.
We're just gonna play like intermission music.
Oh, hey, I could have my Fiat go by. Ready?
I wish I had "Girl from Ipanema" queued up.
Why? Look, there's a little suitcase. We can pack all of our stuff for Oshkosh.
Oh wait, here I have something.
What do you have?
I'm so confused, Dad.
There are.
Please tell me we're gonna keep this in.
Hold on, I gotta open his mouth up. Ah.
Arg. Oh, and there's a dog. Hi, buddy.
Yeah, we'll get the old drive-in intermission sign. You had mentioned before that the first year you went was 1996.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
I am aware of how old you are because we are all the same age.
Love
Oh, really? Awesome.
We're
Awesome.
called
I feel good about that then.
But for our viewers, how old were you the first time you went to AirVenture?
So I was 16.
Okay.
And I owe it a lot to one of my mentors who we're all friends. You guys have heard me talk about him, but his name's Claire Paisley. And Claire was a really, really cool guy, old school Mohawk Airlines mechanic who worked through the history of that airline. And when I met him, he was the lead mechanic at US Air in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And the Beaver County Airport had a small air museum, still has a small air museum called Air Heritage. And I begged my parents to take me up there. You know, we would go to the air show every year there. And they were rebuilding 909 after it had a mishap at our runway in 1985. And it was cool. There's this old bomber, like, that's all banged up and it's getting rebuilt. And I begged my parents to let me volunteer, and they're like, well, you can't because you're 12. So maybe when you get a little older, you can, you know. And thank God Claire and my friend Rob were there, and they both overheard. And they're like, you know, we need all the help we can get. Like, so if he really wants to try and come and help, like, we're open to at least trying it out.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it would have been really easy for them to just mind their own business and pass over it and just be like, whatever, that kid will come back when he wants. But instead they gave me a shot, and, you know, I was just pushing a broom and sandblasting parts and stuff like that, but I didn't care. I was part of this team that was rebuilding a B-17. And funny story was I went back to school in the fall, and, you know, your first day back, you know, teacher always has you write, you know, what did you do over the summer?
Right.
And I wrote that I was helping restore a World War II bomber. And she sent a note home to my parents that said that I had made up as a story. And my parents, this time, you know, we didn't have digital cameras, so you actually had film.
Mm-hmm.
Adam will appreciate that I use the word film. And
So smiling over there.
and you know, I brought a picture in with me of me working on the airplane, and she had to send like a letter sort of apologizing that that was really what I had done. We actually later took the whole class out as a field trip to see it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but Claire was just awesome. He was a true ambassador of aviation, and his big thing was he didn't care who you were, you know, religion, race, sex, none of that mattered. What mattered was if you wanted to know more about airplanes, he was happy to help try to get you, you know, into it. And He helped me a lot. He was a big mentor to me. I remember we had to do a job shadowing experience where I went to work with him at US Air. And really funny story as a side note, you know, it was a 757 in the hangar. It was up on jacks. They were going to do a gear swing on it later that day. Mm. And Claire was like, of course, like, hey, you want to go check out the cockpit? I'm like, heck yeah, this is cool. So I was just sitting in the cockpit, sitting in the pilot seat, checking it all out. And it was in a dock station. So like there was scaffolding right up to the pilot's window. And this guy walks by and he's like, hey, will you flip the hydraulic switch on? And I'm like, I'm looking at the panel and I can see the switch. It says like hydraulic master or whatever, you know. And he just looked, and I'm just kind of like hesitant. And he just kind of looks at me like, come on, like today. You know, I'm like, okay. So I like flip the switch on, you know, and stuff starts to happen in the airplane. Like I could hear noises and then he comes back a little bit and he's just like, yeah, you can go ahead and kill that pump. And I'm like, okay. And I turned the switch back off. And then Claire's story was always that like the next day that guy came up and he's like, I didn't know he didn't work here. I thought he was one of our guys. So, but we went to lunch that day, and me, him, and a gentleman named Al Yessel, who was avionics lead. And, you know, I was like, Claire, I don't know how I can ever thank you for this, you know, because I needed this to graduate. I needed to do this report and get a good write-up from Claire, which he had given me. And Claire said, how you can pay me back is, you know, because I was like, oh, I'm going to take you out to like dinner somewhere or something. And he's like, no, like, I don't. How you pay me back is if you see an opportunity to help somebody else do this, get into airplanes, you help them. And I hopefully have been doing that even before I worked here when I was with different museums. And
I think you've been doing a good job.
I appreciate it.
I would imagine there's in the hundreds at this point, right?
Yeah. You've got to be.
I hope. You know, when I was working in an air traffic control tower, my favorite days were when I knew I had school tours coming. Mm-hmm. Those were in my opinion, the most fun. Or when we had EAA fly-ins and stuff. You know, that was a good time because I knew we were gonna have people up. We could talk to kids about what we did, and coming here it's been really it's like getting drafted by your favorite football team. I tell people, and you know, I believe in the mission, and it's fun to get see young people get excited about airplanes, especially people who never in a million years thought they'd have the chance. Like there's a lot of people who have never even been up close to an airplane, and then suddenly they're in it and going flying. Like that's, I love that. That's just fun.
Yeah. And that's something Adam and I tried to start instituting the last couple years, is bringing somebody with us. So we brought our nephew, we brought my family with me. Then we brought my nephew came 2 years in a row. The second year we brought my nephew and his friend and then, and we brought movie people with us, and we got our intern her first ride in a non-commercial aircraft, which was a P-51 Mustang, and all of us were like, we haven't had that yet. This is so unfair.
That's fantastic. What do you prefer, the Airbus getting peanuts or going in a Mustang? You know,
right? She was like, that was cool. And every once in a while you'll see her repost it. Like, oh, this one time I got to fly in this really cool airplane.
So I couldn't do this without the support of my family, and it took us uprooting and coming up here to do this. And I mean, you guys know my family. My wife is amazing, and my daughter's even a little bit bitten by the airplane bug here. And they both had some pretty interesting experiences, and it was our anniversary, our 5-year anniversary. And nothing ever goes as planned, right? And I had planned that we were going to renew our vows here, and so we were going to renew our vows in the reenactor compound. And so I was like, wow, it'd be really neat if we could fly in somehow. So I guess we flew over aluminum overcast, our B-17 had to come over from Appleton. So Karen and I had the short hop over from Appleton to Oshkosh in the B-17. I reproposed to her on board the airplane with a vintage 40s ring that I had found. And we had it set up where when we landed, Bill Fisher picked us up in a Willys Jeep and took us to the compound, where we had a gentleman dressed in what do you want to call it, the minister or whatever, chaplain. He was dressed up as a chaplain. He was standing on the hood of a Jeep, and he, remarried us. And really, really exciting. But my plan in that was, well, if something, if the weather doesn't happen or if the repo doesn't happen, we'll, I'll set up a flight for her with a Mustang if I can,
Mhm.
because I wanted her to be excited about this and experience some cool stuff.
Okay.
But I'm like, so if the B-17 rains out, I talked to Vlado, and Vlado was like, well, I'll take her up in the P-51. And I'm like, well, perfect. And then I'm like, well, if that all doesn't work out, I'll get her a helicopter ride in the Bell 47. For some dumb way, like everything lined up. So like we got a ride in the B-17 over here, did the debt deal.
Uh-huh.
The next morning she went flying with Vlado in the Mustang and did like formation work with other Mustangs. And
That's
then
awesome.
and then she went flying in the Bell 47. So she was like, I'm having a good year. I'm like, yeah, meanwhile, I'm
You're
like
having a
dog
great
tired.
year.
Like, yeah.
You're like, cool, I'm working every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, if that doesn't hook a person, I don't know what will.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, her big thing is she wants a Corsair ride. She wants to go up one of the, the 2-seat Corsairs.
Yeah.
So got to make that happen.
Yeah.
Adam has a story of, who was it who offered the Haley a Corsair ride? This is years ago. Joe Tobel offered.
Oh, really?
And Adam, she looked at Adam and he's like, it's a single seater. She's like, oh.
That's
Oh, I
fantastic.
see.
It's awesome. There's just really fun stuff that happens here, though. I mean, when I was working in the member tent, if you guys remember, my partner in the members tent was Doug Ward, the ball turret gunner he was a B-17 ball turret gunner. And he goes on break. He's like, I'm gonna go grab something to eat. I'll be back. And I'm like, okay. He used to call me Chrissy, by the way. He's the only person on earth that could have gotten away with that. But,
I remember that.
yeah. So they tell me my first year, they're like, yeah, so your partner's they knew I was a B-17 nerd early on. And so they're like, so during AirVenture, we'll have you sell B-17 flights. I'm like, perfect. This is awesome. And they're like, oh, and by the way, your partner is a ball turret gunner from World War II. And I'm like, wow, that's really neat. So we're on the member tent. I'm like, well, I don't know him. I've never met him. And I'm like, I better make sure like his wheelchair can roll in here. I have no idea what his situation is. So I had it kind of cleared out and ready, and I was ready to help him get in here if he needed it. And he rolls up on a 10-speed bike, and he's just like, hey, Chrissy, I'll be right back. And he just pedals away, and they're just like, yeah, that's your partner. I'm like, like he was in World War II. They're like, yeah, he's like 88 or something like that, but so he would hang out and he would like just randomly break out into like 40 songs and like,
Oh, I love it.
he was just a cool guy and just a fantastic guy. But he goes on his lunch break this day and he calls me and he's like, hey, come on over to Yankee Lady. Yankee Lady was parked near us. And I went out there, and he was back in the ball turret on Yankee Lady. He crawled back into the ball again.
It's tricky to get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you figure he's, someone who was pushing 90, but he was right back at it. And we got, as a matter of fact, I don't mean to plug our book, but our B-17 book, there's a picture of him in that turret again.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So we made sure we put it in there just because it was pretty cool.
I was going to bring that up too, the book. So people who, since we're all missing Oshkosh, right? Like the book, you can actually buy all of the gear still because they have it on the website. So it'll be like we're there and we can all get together and Zoom and wear our t-shirts.
Yes. I know. And I can get another t-shirt.
I know. It's been a tradition. I get one every year and now I can't, but I will. I'm going to order one and another book.
Well, that's the
Awesome.
thing. For this week that we're celebrating Oshkosh from home, it was like, oh, I'll just wear all my different t-shirts I've got. And like, since this is the first one we've done, I was like, oh man, I've got a lot.
I know. I may have more than 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. I go through my attire of like non-aviation related shirts and I have like some plain white t-shirts and that's about it.
Yeah.
You know, a couple here and there, like a Johnny Cash T-shirt. Other than that, it's all airplane stuff. So.
Well, it's so funny when we are at AirVenture. I never wear the stuff I got the year before because it's kind of like wearing the band T-shirt.
Yeah, don't be that guy.
I was like, I'll just save that for when I go home.
Yeah. AirVenture. Here's how I look at it. This is like, so as a I guess it's, for guys, this is a chance for you to show off your cool shirts. Like, this is show off your cool T-shirts that you've gotten from other places, and this is your chance to be a fashion mogul in the aviation area. So,
whenever we go places, Adam's like, "Oh, I need to get a cool T-shirt so that I can show it off."
Yeah. AirVenture's that's the play. That's where because you can wear it and people actually know what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
The only other experience I've had like that, with T-shirts where people identified what it was, or I wore my Buffalo Airways shirt somewhere. Non-aviation related, and people stopped me and were like, "I love ice pilots," and so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And there was one. Well, I'll tell it if we have time, and if you don't like it, you can cut it out along with my bathroom break, and it's fine.
Yeah, we've got a few minutes left.
I was wearing. We had T-shirts from the medical helicopter place I worked at, Stat Medevac, and a couple of us after work went out to dinner at Applebee's, and I'll never forget, somebody came up and said that they said, "You guys all work there?" And we said, "Yeah." And they said, "You guys saved our lives." They'd been in a car accident, and we had flown them, and they actually bought us our dinner. They bought the entire table dinner, and
wow,
that was kind of a neat experience,
That's awesome.
But, yeah.
Wow.
Never
I
know the
had
power.
a T-shirt story, but I don't want to follow it up with.
No, what? I want to hear it.
Mine's dumb now.
No, there's.
Well, now you have to tell it.
Oh, it's so stupid. When we were on our way to AirVenture one year, so I don't remember who bought. I think my sister got it for me. So they made these repro 1980s Tony Hawk Bones Brigades T-shirts, and it has 3 bombs here, and then the back is a B-17, and it says Bones Brigade on it. It's very cool. It's a man's shirt, so I don't always wear it. But I wore it when we were traveling to Oshkosh, and we stopped in Chicago at a rest stop, and this guy comes up to me and he's like, "Are you going to Oshkosh?" And I was like, "Yes." And he's like, "I like your T-shirt."
You just know when somebody's headed to Oshkosh. Like, you just know.
Yeah.
I got one more T-shirt story to tell you. It's fantastic. It's not an Oshkosh one, but it's funny. When I worked on air ambulance, we had a guy named Doug who was a mechanic. He was a crew chief on one of the helicopters. And a lot of times the helicopters are based on helipads not attached to the hospital. They're like next to the hospital. So the mechanics don't usually mix with the medical personnel a lot. They'll just kind of stick to themselves. They have their own little hangar building. And Doug was a very outgoing individual. And I had to deliver some parts to him. So I go up there, and Doug is like, "Hey, it's about lunchtime. Do you want me to buy you lunch? There's a really good cafeteria in this hospital." And I'm like, "Sure." He, to this day, says I exaggerate this story. I do not. We walked in, and it was like walking into Cheers. Like, the doors of the hospital open, and people are just like, "Doug," and then like interacting with him. He's shaking hands with people and everything. I kid you not, this happened. He again says this did not. We had to walk through some hallways to get to the cafeteria, and there was a guy on a stretcher waiting to be seen by a doctor. And he just looks up and he's like, "Doug," I'm like, what the heck? Like, so how this wraps around to a T-shirt is I went back and told everybody this story. And years later, like a year later after this happened, I went to the Grand Canyon, and I'm taking some pictures, sunset at the Grand Canyon. It's beautiful. And off in the distance, there's a guy sort of looking at me. I could tell he wants to say something to me. Took a couple pictures. I'm wearing a Stat Medevac T-shirt. He comes over and he's like, "Hey, are you from Pittsburgh?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, I know a guy who works for you." And I'm like, "Oh, really? Like, who's that?" And he's like, "It's Doug. Do you know Doug? Like, I'm at the Grand Canyon, and because of this T-shirt,
That's awesome.
this guy he's very well known apparently."
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That story's not exaggerated at all. There was a guy on a stretcher that literally was like, Doug.
Doug.
Yeah.
That's like a Monty Python bit or something.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Chris.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Let me keep it
absolutely.
short, so we'll keep it short. And yeah, we're definitely missing you and everybody else. And
Yeah.
I hope you are able to reach out to everyone virtually this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hello.
Same here. It's just so weird, and it's you're missing your friends, and
Yeah. It's
and I
like
think
the
that's
same
been probably the
summer,
hardest part in a lot of this,
Mhm.
this pandemic is, like I could care less about going to eat at dinner. Like I love having places deliver food. Like this is great.
I don't know.
Oh, I
Put on
hate going to
pants.
restaurants.
Yeah, I miss hanging out with my friends.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I will say, maybe it's cliched, but people have been talking about, because a lot of places you wear masks when you're going somewhere, and it does hide a smile. The world's a little grayer because of that. There's, you aren't able to connect with folks differently. So it's.
I know. And I feel weird looking at people in the eye now when I'm wearing it because I feel.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay.
It's very weird. The only good that came out of it is I felt a little bit like Hawkeye Pierce getting to wear masks. Like that's kind of cool. But
I always feel like because I have the one that goes around my neck and like ties back, so I always feel like I'm a ninja.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I'm always
Hey, let me
smiling
ask
at
you before-
people, and then I realize that they can't see me smiling back at them.
I know.
I'm like,
I kinda
really,
feel
I'm
like-
smiling, and then I just look
Smiling.
crazy. No, really, I'm
That sounds
smiling.
wild. Hey, let me ask you guys. Let me flip the table real quick here.
Mhm.
What's your favorite memory of Oshkosh? What's your favorite thing that you guys have done?
That's a good question. I got like my favorite. The thing I miss the most is seeing my friends and getting ice cream every day because it's justified there. I walked a lot. I can totally get ice cream every day.
I put like 20,000 steps on my thing, so.
Yeah, it's actually kind of wrong if you don't.
I don't even remember the name of the booth. What's the ice cream booth? That's
It's by the arch.
the one.
Oh
by-
yeah.
Yeah.
The ice cream. They even have dairy-free ice cream now.
I know,
too,
their ice
if
cream's really
you
good.
enjoy it. Mhm. Or sorbet.
My absolute favorite memory of Oshkosh, I don't know. We've gone so many times and done different things every time. I think one of my favorite things though was getting to get into the Blue Origin capsule, which I think was pretty cool.
That was pretty slick. Yeah. That was
I was
awesome.
like, it's like how you're gonna go to space. And I was like, it's small in here.
Yeah.
Can we go now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss everybody too. It's like old home week, you can't walk 10 steps without running into somebody that you know and that you haven't seen in a year. So it's always great.
Yeah.
As far as memory, I mean, there's a lot of memories, a lot of good ones, but probably one of the highlights was getting to hang out with Dick Cole and his daughter for an entire week, driving him around and just hanging out with him and getting to share a little piece of his life.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of feeling like a rock star, honestly. I mean, it's like your guy, Doug, like Dick walks into a room and everybody goes, Dick,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That guy was like number one target there.
Yeah.
Like he's over there, get him.
But
Yeah.
how much he cared about everybody. Like when he was with you, you were the only important thing in the world. He wanted to talk to you. He wanted to learn about you. He wanted to share experiences. So I don't know, to be a part of that for, even just a couple of days was pretty incredible. But there's a lot of good memories.
There's so many good ones every year. And that reminded me that one of my favorite times was when you called us and Amy's like, hey, can you pick up Liz Strophus and bring her out to our B25? And we're like, hells yeah, we can.
Like we need her now.
Yeah. So we had to go out because they stayed at the Liz Strophus is a WASP and they stayed out at the Jesuit retreat. So we had to go pick her up. And the entire time she just regaled us with these amazing stories. And Adam's like, I have a question for you. And she's like, yeah. He's like, if you had your own plane and you were allowed to put nose art on it, what would you put on it? And she's like, oh, that's a really good question. I don't think I could put that many boys' names on the nose art.
She was so cool. Yeah, we got to hang out with her too for like
Liz
almost
was
a whole week.
Liz
That
was a rock star. I mean,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a lot
she
of
was
good memories.
another great. I always love when you're pleasantly surprised by a World War II veteran's condition. And
Right.
we had her at the museum. We knew she was coming for a visit. This is non during AirVenture, but we had a T6. We have a T6 in the museum collection, so we put her name on it, and underneath it said Avenger Field, and we were just going to surprise her with it. And we're like, we have people standing by. We have like a wheelchair. Like we're like, yeah, we're ready for her. She gets in and she grabs me and Zach by the arm and is just like, well, I've got 2 guys. You guys are on your own. And like it just dragged us to the Eagle Hangar. Like we were along for the ride. Like we were not leading that show at all that morning. But yeah, stuff like that is what's really, it's what's awesome. It's also what I miss. Last year I did my B-17 talk, and
really good, by the way, for everybody out there.
oh, hey, thank you. And I am doing it virtually this year. We're going to do some virtual stuff at Spirit of Aviation Week.
Yeah.
And but last year I'm giving it, and a gentleman walks in and sits in the back. He's wearing a ball cap. He's definitely an older gentleman, and he's wearing a ball cap that said 100th Bomb Group veteran. And I'm like, I immediately feel foolish because I'm like, I'm talking about B-17s, and there's a 100th Bomb Group B-17 guy here. And I flat out just asked him, I'm like, were you, in the middle of my talk, I was like, were you in B-17s? And he stands up and he introduces himself, and he sounds like he's right out of 12 O'Clock High in the movie. And he was one of the original cadre of guys assigned to the Bloody 100th.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
He's like 97, I think. His name's John Luckadoo, and just a really, really neat guy. And I got to luckily spend a good hour or 2 talking with him. We flew him in the B-17 with his godson. And, but just amazing that so magical things that happen. Like he comes to my talk, we leave the talk, and we're just I'm doing sort of an impromptu interview with him. And I get a call from the B-17, and they're like, hey, we have an empty seat. Like, would you happen to have like any World War II vets that should go flying with us today? And I'm like, I'm literally sitting with one, like, and we took him up flying. So, a lot of magical stuff happens that week. So I think that's another thing that I'm missing.
And the thing, like, I love that you never know who you're going to run into that day.
Right.
And like I know it's been a couple years since the WASP have been coming, but I love that you could just be walking around and like, there goes the golf cart full of the WASP, and they're all like, we're rock stars. They're just like taking us around everywhere. But that just made me think of one of my favorite years was as you know, my grandfather flew in a B-24, and I found, after I wrote my book, I found some of the crew members, which I think maybe you helped me with, like the crew members' kids. And my grandpa's pilot was named Ernie Capone, and they were nicknamed Capone's crew because they thought that was cool, because like Al Capone, gangster.
Yeah.
But his son, Ernie Capone Jr., was working for no, not Bose. An airplane company that starts with a B, which I can't remember right now.
Okay. Bendix maybe, or something?
It might have been Bendix. But they had their booth there, and he was working there the one year. So we got to actually meet each other and have dinner. And
I remember that.
Yeah, it was just a really nice experience, which if it weren't for AirVenture, we probably never would have gotten together. So
sometimes you never know what side treks will experience and end up having a fun little side adventure that's not even associated with the main point you're there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We went to the Air Force Museum one time, and we bent a rim on a Ford Mustang. And Kara and I ended up having this like fun little side adventure. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Oh, yeah. That was the weird trip, because Adam was teaching at Wright State, and I was like, oh, I'm going to come with you for the weekend, and I'm going to go to the Air Force Museum by myself because I want to do that. And I'm just standing in the middle of the museum, and here comes Chris Henry, and I'm like on a random day, and I'm like, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh yeah, hey, my car's broken. Can you like take me to get my car fixed?
Like you have no idea how good it is to see you.
Yeah.
but also I need a ride.
Also, this is actually very convenient for me.
Yeah,
I'm so glad you're here. I need a ride.
that was fantastic.
That was a good weekend. That was great.
It was.
And,
We had a great time.
yeah, and because you used to volunteer docent there, like I had my own like personal private tour guide. It was awesome. I learned so, like I've been to that museum so many times before that, and I learned so much new stuff with you being there. I was like,
Oh, it's fun. I love to hear that. You never know what's going to happen. It's and I really encourage anybody that's listening. You know, we're talking AirVenture and EAA, and I'm obviously proud to be there. But wherever you're listening from, you more than likely have an organization in your hometown or near your hometown, and they probably need your help more than ever because of all of this. And whether it's volunteer time, whether it's a donation, whatever you can do to help, you know, I urge you to do it. And if you go out and volunteer, I guarantee you it's life-changing. I mean, it's you're just going to look back and be like, how was I not doing this already? Like, this is so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I know that applies to the CAF Minnesota. I point like everybody can see that I'm pointing to Amy.
I know. No, it's true though.
Yes,
I mean, we've been so grateful for all of the help that we've received during COVID and just our volunteer base anyways. I mean, it's another part of our extended family. You know, we're not just volunteering together, like we become friends, we become family, like we support each other, we help each other. So it's a big community that I never knew that I needed so much.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
I think it's another part of what I'm missing is, you know, there's just people you see every day at the museum or every week, and you know, and everybody's kind of not having that, you know. So
yeah,
it's hard to not have actual human contact.
it is. Yeah. You know who I really feel bad for are folks who, you know, maybe don't have a significant other.
right.
Oh yeah.
You probably feel like you're a little bit on an island, you know, and so I have a few friends that are like that. I try to FaceTime, and you know, a couple of nights ago we had a giant game that a bunch of us Zoom called into, and
oh cool.
And then we try to recreate the beginning of the Brady Bunch with all the different cubes. So it was
awesome.
Yeah, it's on my Facebook page, so you can find it.
I will look for that.
I have been kind of
that was Sarah's idea. So
I'll definitely look that. Remember, you know what's funny is you're like, "What's your favorite thing about Oshkosh?" I'm like, "I don't know." And I'm like,
all of it.
Absolutely no. I love the night show. My absolute favorite thing, and we don't get to see it every year because we usually have some other commitment that we have to go to, or it gets rained out, which we've stood in the pouring rain to try and watch that thing. But it's by far, like, I think one of the coolest things that happens there.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. And Dennis does an amazing job with organizing a lot of that. And, you know, it's one of the things, I mean, it became so popular, we had to make two. We had to have a choice.
I love it.
Yeah.
Two options to see it.
Yeah.
I don't remember we were in that meeting where it was like, should we do one or two? And then finally someone was like, people love it. Let's just do two. It's fun.
Yeah. And then if it rains one night, then you at least
get
one.
Yeah. And what's really cool is the employees, because by that time of night, most of the employees are done working. So like we actually get to enjoy that too.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
The only thing that I don't like about it is the traffic jam trying to get out.
Oh God.
I know.
It's like, oh, we're never getting out of here.
So, my favorite story to tell Dennis all the time is we were watching it. There was a gentleman from somewhere in Europe, I'm assuming, who spoke sort of broken English. And last year when it ended, we always end it with like a wall fire or some sort of big explosion. And last year was like this like mushroom cloud that they shot with fireballs, and like all kinds of craziness happened. And this dude in front of me just turns around and he's like, "That is America." That's my favorite thing.
USA. Wow.
Oh my God.
I always think of the end of Talladega Nights, like, "You, sir, taste of America."
Totally.
Well, we could keep going. We could keep going for hours with.
I will talk to you all day, sir.
I know. We miss you. We should have a happy hour.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been awesome to have you on reminiscing, and
Same here.
I appreciate your time today.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anytime you guys could, use me, let me know. I'm always happy to come on and hang out with you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. We'll have you back again.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
So next time, what I can do is I can do a walk around of my mini museum in my house. I can show you
Oh.
guys.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That would be fun. So we can all trade swag in our houses or something. So yeah.
We'll show everybody what's in our house.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, there's dishes. I got to do those. You know? But
Oh, there's another cat.
yeah, exactly.
I like it.
Oh,
Oh, well,
Thanks
thank
so
you guys for having me on. It's always fun, and just always enjoy the company of all of you. You know, both you and Amy, and of course your spouses who are not seen. Although Adam, I think, was seen briefly. So you guys you're awesome people, and you're near and dear to my heart. You guys are the four of you are really you're important. That's who I look forward to seeing every year, and I say every year, but we kind of get to hang out every once in a while outside of that. So.
Yeah.
Likewise, Chris.
Yeah.
We feel
Yeah.
that
Right
for you.
back at you, dude.
Yeah.
By the way, a little plug for your book, Kara. My daughter Elizabeth is rereading your book. So
Oh.
Awesome.
Well,
yeah,
fantastic.
I just noticed it sitting on the kitchen table here. So
Well, I'm glad she's enjoying a second time through it, I suppose.
absolutely, she's
Very
geeked
good.
out because you signed one for her, so she's reading her signed copy. So
Oh, I love it.
yeah, same here. Well, good seeing you both.
Yeah.
Thank
Good
you
to
as
see
well,
you too, Chris.
See ya.
All right, and join us tomorrow as we come back with another guest for our continuation of Oshkosh Week. I can't remember who it is, but it'll be a surprise.
It'll be awesome.